The prayer this morning will be offered by the good delegate representing Charles and Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let us pray. Lord, we come before you today, Lord, to say thank you, Lord. We thank you once again for another opportunity to be in your midst, Lord. This is going to be a prayer of thanksgiving, Lord. We're thankful for our neighbors. We're thankful for the mindset that we're coming here today on, Lord. So we answer this prayer, and we close this prayer by saying, Amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, February the 19th, 2024.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So order petitions, memorials, and other papers. We have a House resolution. Recognizing the gentleman representing Anne Arundel County.
Great. Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. This morning, I ask you to please join me in welcoming our four-time American East champions, the UMBC women's volleyball team. For the past 4 years, they have dominated the field this year, going 17-8, including a thrilling 3-0 win over Binghamton to secure the America East Championship once again. The team of all-star student athletes include Kamani Conte, Michelle DeMarzi, and Asia Miller, who were all named to the College Sports Communicators 2023 Academic All-District Volleyball teams. Please join me in congratulating our UMBC Retrievers on their incredible achievements on and off the court. Congratulations.
Will the reading clerk please read the resolution in full?
Be it hereby known to all that the House of Delegates of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County 2023 women's volleyball team in recognition of your outstanding 2023 volleyball season that culminated with winning your fourth consecutive America East Conference Championship. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 20th day of February 2024.
The clerk will read the bond initiatives and the committee assignment.
Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 45, February the 20th, 2024, referred to appropriations.
Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 2. The clerk will read the first.
Household 88, State Retirement and Pension System, immediate vesting, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Household 92, Resources and Education for All Prisons, REAP Act, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Household 580, Time to Serve Act of 2024, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Household 629, State Retirement and Pension System, Consumer Price Index definition, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Household 630, State Retirement and Pension System, Transfers of Service, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Appropriations, report number 3. Clerk will read the first bill.
Household 75, Higher Education Teacher Development and Retention Program definition, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The First Amendment is technical. The Second Amendment alters the dates for the programs and alters the evaluation and alters the use of the fund. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Household 198, Transportation, Washington Metro Area Transit Authority Operating Assistance, Alteration, Maryland Metro Funding Act of 2024. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
There are 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 postpones the requirements that the state withhold a portion of WMATA's annual operating grant until 2028 and alters certain details of the withholding provisions. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I briefly had a few questions or comments to solicit from the floor leader, if my friend from Howard County, thank you. So in reading the fiscal note on the bill, I'm making sure that I want to make sure I get this correct. Our operating grant, Maryland's, to WMATA last year was $475 million. And this year, the budget as originally introduced was $489 million, which was a 3% increase. But the analysis now suggests that we're actually going to give WMATA this year $639 million, which is a 34.5% increase from last year's contribution. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that happening at the same time that we're cutting a wide variety, I believe, $3 billion or in excess of that from other transportation projects across the state?
Yes.
Are you aware if there's any other recipient of funds in the state of Maryland who's getting a 34.5% bump from their last year budget?
I am not aware.
Okay, I appreciate that. some of the questions, so what the bill, I just want to make sure that I understand the bill and that other members who may be interested understand it. We passed a law several years ago. I think it was from a very good colleague from Montgomery County who on third reader, we're going to quiz him about all of the names of the metro stops on the yellow line and the green line. So get ready for that, Mr. Chairman. Get ready. Go home and study tonight. But he was the author of a bill that imposed sort of a cap that said if WMATA increased their budget by more than 3%, we would withhold a certain percentage of our contribution to them. As I took it, at least, is almost like a stick to try to keep WMATA's budget in line. Is that a fair representation of what we did a few years ago?
I wouldn't call it a stick, but yes, it was a 3% cap.
Okay. And what this bill does is it eliminates that cap. And now it says that because WMATA's budget is going to go up dramatically, as the fiscal note indicates, we're going to remove the limitation that we put on our contribution and just continue to make, again, a 34.5% increase in our contribution.
It is a temporary pause in the 3% cap for 3 primary reasons. The first is the increasing operating costs related to inflation. When our good friend from Montgomery County introduced the bill back in 2018, remember the inflation rate was only about 2.5%.
The good old days.
Yes, and so inflation-driven costs is the first reason. The second reason is reduced fare revenue generating from the pandemic that is beginning to increase and heading definitely in the right direction with more than 50 million more trips in fiscal year 23 than in 22. And then finally, the third reason is that we had a subsidy credited back to Maryland during the pandemic, which the value today of is about $100 million, so it artificially reduces the base that we're calculating the 3% on.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to trick you. If you don't know the answer to this, it's perfectly fine. We can get to it later. Do you have any idea as to what the WMATA fare box recovery rate is today, meaning how much of their operations is paid for by the people who actually use the system? And if you don't, I'm not trying to trap you into that. It's just something that occurred to me.
That number right now, it's 13%, down
Okay.
from 36% in 2019.
Okay, so even in 2019, prior to the pandemic, almost 2/3 of the cost of WMATA was a subsidization. It wasn't paid for by the actual user. And now almost 90%, 87% of the operating costs are subsidized rather than deriven from the actual user's ability to pay for the system.
Which is not unusual for transit across the country. And
I-
this is the third largest heavy rail system in the country.
Right. I mean, you and I may disagree. I think that's the biggest problem with mass transit systems is they're not sustainable by the people who actually use them. But I appreciate that. The $150 million that the additional contribution that has been budgeted to go to WMATA this year, is that contingent upon the other WMATA partners, the District of Columbia and Virginia, making an identical contribution?
It is contingent upon making both Virginia and DC making a contribution. Right now, what is proposed is $130 million from Virginia and $200 million from the district, but our $150 million is not a blank check. It has strings attached to it, and the other jurisdictions must participate, or our number will decrease based on the formula between the 3 jurisdictions.
And so there's a formula. Is there some reason why Virginia's, which most of the times I've taken the Washington Metro in my life, I used to live in Northern Virginia, I worked in DC, and I took the Orange Line quite a bit. My understanding is that Virginia would have a pretty significant usage rate of the system as well. The Orange Line, the Silver Line going to Dulles now, other lines, the Blue Line that goes in through Pentagon. See, my friend from Montgomery County didn't think I knew anything about the Washington Metro, but why is Virginia's rate of payment $20 million less than ours?
The model takes into account ridership levels and revenue, and so it's adjusted proportionately between the 3 jurisdictions.
While we sit here in Annapolis, our colleagues to the south are sitting in the old Capitol grounds. I used to work right across the street from it in Richmond. My understanding is that the Democratic majority in Richmond has recently indicated that, at least for the time being, that they've pulled their $130 million contribution out of their draft budget, their $130 million contribution to WMATA. Do you have any information to that? And if that happens, then does our $150 million go away as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't anticipate that they will pull 130 million. We hope and anticipate that they will come forward with funding by the time they adopt their budget, March 9th.
Okay. So if theirs is less than 130, does ours go less than 150?
Yes,
Okay. There's some formula of correlation.
yes.
Thank you very much for the questions. I appreciate it. I'm not going to request an amendment at the time, subject to anybody else that chooses to do so, but I do appreciate the information.
Thank you.
That was a good debate. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 260, State Personnel, Collective Bargaining, Supervisory Employees. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move so much be the reading of the amendments. Madam
So
Speaker.
ordered.
Apologies. There is one amendment, and it makes technical corrections to conform the bill with the Senate cross-file. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 415, State Police Retirement System and Law Enforcement Officers Pension System, Deferred Retirement Option Program, Technical Correction. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 corrects an oversight in the 2022 legislation that set the parameters for paying earned financial incentives to retirees from the investment division of the State Retirement Agency. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 539, Public Institutions of Higher Education Student Withdrawal Policy, Reimbursement of Tuition and Fees, Cameron Carden Act of 2024. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The first amendment is technical. The second amendment replaces reimburse with refund to clarify that this policy only applies to costs directly paid by the student. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 625, State Retirement and Pension System, Personal Statement of Benefits, Authorized Format. For favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 specifies the educational training required of board members and reorganizes the section in the bill that requires the board to provide members and retirees with benefits information into 2 distinct subsections. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters. Clerk will read the bill.
Report number 2, House Bill 211, Business Regulation, Contractors, Subcontractors, and Brokers, Prohibited Conduct. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is
Madam
adopted. Are
Speaker.
there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentlelady from Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Actually, I would like to request on behalf of the committees to special order this bill because we would like to add an amendment. Thank you.
Committee? Question for the House is the adoption of the special order. All in favor signify by saying aye. It will be special order until tomorrow, right? Correct? Chairman?
Yes, till tomorrow.
Okay.
Madam Speaker.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered until the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 223, commercial law, mortgage loans, verification of ability to repay, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 391, corporations and associations, Protestant Episcopal Church, Diocese of Washington, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Okay, you sat down. Okay. Young lady from Hartford.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise for this bill? Floor leader?
Good morning.
Floor leader?
Oh, there you are. Couldn't see you over there, even though I have my glasses on. They apparently need to be upgraded. I got a few questions. My first question was, I saw some of the language in here. I don't think I've ever seen language like this on a bill before about the constitutionality. It's on page 2 if anybody wants to follow along. Did you guys get an AG opinion as to whether this bill is constitutional?
No, we did not.
Okay, and then my other major concern with it as drafted is whether or not there was support from the actual churches in the area. Did you get any letters of support from them?
Yeah, we did get letters from the Episcopal Diocese of Washington. So let me explain what this bill does so you can understand what we're doing.
Sure, go ahead.
So we're trying to make the Washington Diocese in line with what the other 2 dioceses in Maryland had. There are 3 dioceses in Maryland. They are the Diocese of Maryland, the Diocese of Easton, and the Diocese of Washington. So we're bringing the diocese in Washington in line with the other 2, and that's all we're doing with this bill.
Okay, yeah, so I'm just looking through. I see that only the actual diocese, which is sort of like the parent company essentially, has weighed in, but I don't see anything from the actual member church, who will be member churches in here. Were they contacted or given any direct notice that this was going to be occurring?
Because it didn't directly affect them.
Well, I assume that they'll be forced into membership, will they not? Dioceses oversee other churches.
Right. There are 51 parishes that are impacted by this. They're aware of this change. They wanted to be in line with the other dioceses that are operating in Maryland.
So, but they just didn't send in any actual letters about it?
The Diocese of Easton and the Diocese of Maryland aren't impacted because they already have the laws followed.
Sorry. Oh, okay. I see where we're missing each other. I mean the actual parishes. I don't see any parish testimony in here at all. I only see diocese. So I don't see anything from the individual churches at all.
Yeah, that's not typical what we see, that the diocese, the parishes individually send in letters. The overall diocese did, though. That is their governing body.
Okay, so, okay, it just seems a little odd that the people who are benefiting from the bill are the only ones weighing in. The people that are going to be regulated by the bill haven't said anything. But I appreciate you answering all my questions. Thank you so much.
Because the diocese speak on their behalf, that's why. That is because they're the overarching body that speaks on behalf of the 51 parishes that are impacted.
And all 51 parishes know that this is occurring and they're
Yes.
okay? Okay, thank you.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, good morning.
Good morning.
Would you allow me to special order this bill until tomorrow so I can take a look at the constitutionality issues that were raised
Sure.
by our colleague from Harper County?
Till tomorrow.
Thank you.
Question for the House is to special order HB 391 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The weak ayes have it. Okay. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 611, Electronic Transactions Protection Act, repeal, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 622, Consumer Reporting Agencies, Records of Criminal Proceedings, prohibition, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, Report Number 3, House Bill 1, Maryland Paint Stewardship, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any, recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern.
Questions for the floor leader, but I'll wait until you're.
Okay, are there any amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have questions for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
All right, so this is one of those bills that seems like Groundhog's Day. It's every year we keep seeing the same one over and over again. So can you remind us again what this bill does?
Sure, happy to. This bill establishes a fee on the sale of paint, and that fee would be used to fund the collection of reused paint and the recycling of paint.
Okay, so I'm just reading, looking through the bill here. It's more than just a single fee, isn't it? Isn't there fees on the manufacturer as well? Or is
No,
it just
the fee is a one-time fee that the manufacturer would add to the price of paint that they sell to retailers.
Okay, and there's also a fee to the end consumer as well?
That fee presumably is passed on.
Correct. Okay. And how much is that fee? Do we know?
It's to be determined by the state agency in consultation with an advisory organization of producers that's set up. It's meant to be a fee that covers just the collection, transport, and recycling of the paint and nothing else.
Okay, so we don't know how much that fee is going to be, and is it going to be based only on the cost to run the program? Is there any way that we can follow up to make sure that it's not going to be some sort of enterprise for the state or anything like that?
They will be reporting on the program on a regular basis, I believe on an annual basis. So that would include costs that were funds that were collected and the cost of the program.
So why are we doing this?
Because there is a huge amount of reused paint that goes that is not recycled. A lot of jurisdictions, some jurisdictions have hazardous waste drop-off days, but not all do. Even some of that paint that is collected at drop-off days is not recycled, ends up disposed of in other ways.
Okay, so what are the other ways that they're disposed of?
Landfilling. Mostly
the landfill. Okay, so is there any scientific evidence that the chemicals that are in these paints are actually ending up in groundwater? Well, that's an important question to ask. I mean, if it's not a health issue and if it showed up in groundwater, the chemicals, and it was hazardous, then if that weren't the case, then there's really no reason to have this bill.
Well, certainly there's lots of anecdotal evidence that paint is dumped, is not properly disposed of, but as to whether there's scientific studies showing how that affects groundwater, I couldn't say. But certainly there's plenty of evidence that it is not being disposed of properly. Okay. And that recycled paint is a commodity that can serve a useful life once it's recycled.
And there's a whole host of other household products that we use that folks just put in their trash and then it ends up in the landfill. Or are we doing anything in those regards as well, or just paint?
I'll say with respect to tires, I mean, that's not necessarily a household item, but tires, there is a fee that is assessed for their proper disposal and recycling. other household products. There are limitations on how they can be disposed of, but I don't believe you have the same ability to recycle most of those hazardous household waste products as you do with respect to recycled paint.
Okay, very good. I don't have any other questions. But anytime we add a fee or a tax to any product, it's going to have a disproportionate effect on our communities and our counties and our residents on the Eastern Shore because we have tax-free Delaware right across the line. And it's compounding. It might just be a small amount, but all the purchases that a lot of our families make throughout the year, it does compound and it does add up over time. But Madam Speaker, if I can ask to special order this bill for the appropriate time tomorrow for a possible amendment.
Madam Speaker?
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Yeah, we're happy to accept the special order, but if you have an amendment, I'd ask you to get it to the floor leader and the committee chair.
Of course, absolutely.
Ahead of
Thank
time.
Question for the House is Special Order House Bill 1 for the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill has been special ordered until the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 43, Motor Vehicle Registration, Exceptions for Golf Carts, Authorization. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 clarifies the time of day for authorized operation and corresponding lighting requirements. Amendment number 2 restores the current law highways authorized for operation in Golden Beach, Patuxent Knolls, St. Mary's County. And amendment number 3 prohibits the number of occupants from exceeding the number of seats. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for the floor leader, please.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. So last year I received a call from a relative in a different jurisdiction, and this man was inflamed about a local proposal that was going to allow some housing developments to connect the developments to the local golf course by allowing golf carts to drive on a local highway. And the community was pretty inflamed about this. So what jurisdiction, that was a local bill that they attempted to do that with last year, and this is a statewide bill. To what jurisdictions will this apply?
This applies statewide. And all it does is rather than saying that every jurisdiction that wants to allow golf carts to drive on their roads without registration has to come to us year over year over year, this says to the local jurisdictions, we trust you. You know your roads. Within these parameters, you can decide where golf carts can drive.
So could it be possible that it could be a very short distance that the golf carts would drive to connect to some local facilities?
That's up to the local jurisdiction.
Could it be possible that these facilities could be facilities that distribute alcohol?
That's up to the local jurisdiction.
And how would that be policed? How would they police the driving of golf carts short distances? For, let's say, example, some folks are out on the golf course, they got a cooler of beer on the back, and well, they just want to hop on the highway real quick in their golf cart and get to where they got to go. How do we oversee that?
Well, first of all, they can't hop on a highway. This is on local roads.
The bill says highway.
Well, yes, because that's how we define roads. But I wanted to be clear that it's got to be local roads, not on state highways. Okay, so that's the distinction that I'm making there. And second, to your other point, just like we regulate cars.
Gotcha. Madam Speaker, could I special order this bill one day for the purpose of an amendment, please?
Chairman.
Morning, Madam Speaker. We're happy to accept a special order on this unanimous bipartisan bill in committee. Until tomorrow, if you have an amendment, please get a copy to the floor leader and to me ahead of time.
Thank you.
Question for the House is to special order House Bill 43 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill has been special ordered. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 117, Department of Natural Resources, Maryland Geological Survey Fund Establishment. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Bless you. Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 173, State Buildings and State Highways, Collection of Yard Waste. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
As amended, this bill prohibits state employees or contractors from disposing of yard waste collected on the grounds of a state building or a state highway in a single-use plastic container. In addition, the bill requires that such yard waste be collected in a container that will not be discarded with the yard waste or that is in a compostable paper bag. Amendment number 1 adds sponsors, co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 exempts the disposal of noxious weeds and invasive species from the requirements of the bill and clarifies the type of container that may be used to collect yard waste. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes. Oh, got to look on the left. Okay. The ayes have it. Favorable is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentle lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise for a question, please?
Sure.
Morning.
Floor leader.
Can you tell us what the penalty for this is? I read the bill and I didn't see who would impose the penalty and how much it would be.
There is no penalty.
No penalty, no fine, no. It's a toothless tiger.
It's a requirement of state agencies to follow the provisions of this bill, so there is no penalty.
So, it includes subcontractors. Clearly, people doing this work are not all direct state employees.
That's true. There are contractors working on state properties that are covered, but there is no penalty for them.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 176, Vehicle Towing or Removal, Insurer of Record, Electronic Notification. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next.
House Bill 231, Vehicle Laws, Special Registration Plates, Gold Star, and Next of Kin Families. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments. The first amendment is technical. The second amendment strikes the requirement that the registration plates display the given name and rank of the deceased service member.
Question for the House.
Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 278, Urban State Highways, Speed Limits, Exceptions. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 605, Motor Vehicles, Recreational Vehicle Dealer Agreements. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation, report number 4. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 17, Charter Counties Comprehensive Plans Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 93, Landlord and Tenant Termination of Residential Lease, Limitation of Liability for Rent, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 removes therapists from the bill as a licensed professional that can complete the certification for the limited liability for rent. Strikes the language about the intellectual and development disabilities and clarifies what mental disorders qualifies to limit the tenant's liability for rent. Specifically, mental disorders must cause the continued habitation of the leased premises to unforeseeable and unsustainable and require the tenant to move to a home, facility, institutional, or obtain higher level of care that can be provided to leased premises. There is no fiscal impact. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Question now is adoption of favorable report as amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could you just in layman's terms explain the bill to me with amendments? What does this bill do?
What does the bill do? So you want me to read this again?
Well, I'll tell you what, how about if we special order it, you can read it to me after.
The amendments removes therapists from the bill as a licensed professional that can complete certification for the limitation of liability for rent. Strikes language about the intellectual and development disabilities and clarifies what mental disorders qualify to limit the tenant's liability for rent. Specifically, the mental disorders must cause the continued habitation lease for the premises of unforeseeable, unsustainable, require the tenant to move to a home, facility, institution, obtain a higher level of care that can be provided for the leased premises. Third time?
Thank you, Floor Leader. Madam Speaker, could I special order the bill for the appropriate time tomorrow?
That's the committee chair's decision. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're happy to accept a special order at the appropriate time tomorrow. If you have an amendment, please get it to the floor leader and to the committee chair ahead of time.
All right, thank you.
Question for the House is special order House Bill 93 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill will be special ordered for tomorrow. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 109, Natural Resources, Submerged Aquatic Vegetation, Alteration or Removal Requirements, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 120, Economic Development, Maryland Waterman's Microloan Program, Eligibility, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. So much be considered reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
All right, this bill, HB 120, expands the eligibility for loans under the Maryland Waterman's Microloan Program to individuals who are residents of the state and hold a commercial license to catch finfish, crabs, clams, oysters issued by the Potomac River Fisheries Commission. There are 3 committee amendments. Number 1, put commission license holders into existing categories of license holders under the program. Number 2, strike existing law perimeters for the amounts of loans that may be issued. And number 3, alter the effective date to July 1, 2024. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 139, Landlord and Tenant, Office of Home Energy Programs, Financial Assistance, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The committee's amendment strikes the bill on the body, strikes the body of the, and the amendments. The amendments are the bill. Under a certain law, a landlord is required to provide a tenant with a copy of the water and sewer bill if the tenant is required to make payments to the house utilities to the landlord. As amended, the bill adds gas, electric, utility bills as a requirement, also provides landlord with the alternative of notifying the tenant of a total utility cost billed to the landlord and immediately preceding year. The bill does not apply to a landlord that requires the landlord to pay water and sewer or gas bills directly to utility provider or allocate the cost of the utility using the racial utility billing system. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
A question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next.
House Bill 241, Housing and Community Development, Just Community Designation, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from the shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have some questions if the floor leader could rise.
Committee Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The floor leader is making his way back to his seat.
Well, thank you. So I read the title and the Just Communities kind of caused a little curiosity, so I went to the Google machine here. And a just community is a place where there is connection, fairness, support, compromise, nature, love, purpose, and meaningful jobs. Sounds like a place in Florida that comes to mind. But in all seriousness, is there a definition in the bill that defines just communities? Who made the definition?
Yes, if you look at the bill on page 2, line number 19 is that 6-1203, a just community. It lists a whole topic of issues relevant to just communities. So if you turn to that page right there, and you'll see the entire list, young man.
But that was a question. I kind of read it, but my concern is a lot of those could be, there's not a whole lot of hard. How do we determine if this community is actually? Is there a rubric? I guess is a better way of saying it. Is there a rubric? How are we going to judge who is being just? Is there going to be like a little, list where we check off the boxes, and if you meet all these, then you're going to be entitled to this funding, which could be pretty substantial.
Yes, I'm gonna read this to you because it has a substantial list of what is called just communities, and this is the secretary has already hired their assistant to handle this in their department as well. So they're already moving forward with this. And just communities, if you look at it, talks about communities that are impacted by history of forms of legal racial segregation, as specified, the demolition of residential neighborhoods through the use of eminent domain or state federal funding, state imprisonment rate higher than $750 per 100,000 people. It also talks about communities where highways have separated communities, which is one of the things that one of our previous colleagues, used to be chair of appropriations, was famous for.
Right. So again, I guess a lot of communities can make a case that they're impacted in those ways. That's why I was asking if there's qualifiers or a rubric. Is there going to be a checklist? Whereas if this happens, then if you have the most number of check marks, your community gets the money. It seems like a lot of discretion. My concern is the discretion that could be used in moving a large amount of money to a particular community.
And that is exactly why the secretary makes the determination based upon this criteria, which communities qualify under just communities. This is something that's going to be taken up by the secretary and assistant secretary, that a new position has been hired. They will be looking at all these qualifications and making these determinations. within
Will
the
there
department.
be separation for rural versus urban counties? Any differentiation?
No.
So will it be winner takes all or top 5? How, I mean,
Again, the secretary looks at the list of communities that fit into this criteria and then makes the determinations which ones qualify.
is it possible we special order this tomorrow for a
With an amendment, yes, by tomorrow.
Thank you.
Question for the House is Special Order House Bill 241 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill has been special ordered for tomorrow. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 309, Cooperative Housing Corporations Dispute Settlement. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment is technical and provides clarification that the governing body of a cooperative housing corporation must provide notice to a member via certified mail, return receipt requested. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 480, Real Property Land Installment Contracts, Requirements, and Vendor Duties and Limitations. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 510, Business Facade Improvement Program, Eligible Funding Recipients. Favorable.
Question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 3. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 34, Interstate Social Work Licensure Compact. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. The amendment adds sponsors and conforms several provisions to the text in the original model compact. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 153, Medical Records Fees, Attorneys Representing Patients. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 adds co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 requires the attorney to provide documentation to the healthcare provider that the attorney is representing the patient in a disability case. Move so much the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 189, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Provider Agencies and Personal Care Aids, Reimbursement and Wage Reports, Home Care Workers Employment Act of 2024. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 adds co-sponsors, makes technical changes, and clarifies that the bill only applies to residential service agencies. Amendment number 2 strikes the requirement that the Maryland Department of Health conduct a certain rate analysis and instead requires a department to report on how the department will implement a federal rule regarding personal care aide wages. Move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Are you getting up?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
So Floor Leader, I just had a question for you. This was one I stood up on last week. Were the amendments sort of a compromise with the opponents to the bill, or could you just tell me a little bit more about what the amendments are doing?
Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the question. The amendments came about as a result of deliberations of all stakeholders, including the Maryland Department of Health, as well as residential service agencies, their trade groups, their representative groups. And so ultimately, the amendments are the product of the minds and the will of everyone involved.
Okay. So that last part, could you just, so I was listening to your amendments. The last part had to do with federal determinations. Could you talk to me a little bit more about what that is and how that applies here?
Yes, of course. That's an excellent question. So the department recommended that rather than impose a particular set of steps to address questions about residential service agency workers' wages, that we wait until the state receives from the U.S. Department of Labor finalized rules about how employees, workers will be classified, and then how the state should respond or operationalize that rule. So it just makes sense, rather than imagine we have the best answer, to wait for guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor.
Okay. Thank you, Floor Leader. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill?
Question for the
Recognizing
bill.
the young lady from Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for the Floor Leader.
Floor Leader.
Madam Speaker, yes. Yes.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Just two questions for you, and I haven't had a chance to keep looking at any budgetary items, but have our Medicaid rates increased at all, or are they being proposed to increase? Because that is one concern that I'm constantly hearing from our home residential agencies.
Yes, and that's a legitimate concern. Medicaid rates do increase over time. We know that. This bill doesn't address Medicaid rate increases, however.
Right.
This bill focuses simply on finding the best way to record, document, and track the wages of personal care aides who work for residential service agencies. There's a very narrow focus of this bill.
Right, and that's the concern. Do you foresee, or did you hear testimony on whether or not there may be any hindrances or challenges to continue to get self-employed residential service, CNAs, if you will, to continue to work for these agencies? Would that be a challenge under this bill?
Also an excellent question. This bill doesn't address the conditions under which contracted employees, contracted workers, 1099 workers are affected. This bill focuses on making sure that we know the wages that are paid to personal care aides in residential service agencies.
Okay, so they're not required to be on the W-2?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
There is no mandate in this bill requiring that any worker be classified one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 292, State Procurement, Maryland State Board of Contract Appeals, Attorneys' Fees. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical and adds co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 authorizes, rather than requires, the appeals board to award an interested party reasonable attorney fees, defines interested party, and authorizes the award of costs if the conduct of the unit was in violation of law. I move the amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 342, State Procurement, Prompt Payment of Suppliers. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical and adds co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 alters the definition of supplier to mean a person who has supplied labor or materials to a contractor only, not a subcontractor, and requires only contractors to promptly pay suppliers undisputed amounts. Move the amendments, please.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 368, Human Relations, Discrimination by a Place of Public Accommodation. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical and adds co-sponsors. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill and replaces it with language mirroring House Bill 579 of 2020, which passed this House. As amended, the bill alters statutory provisions that authorize the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights to seek an order awarding monetary relief if it finds that a respondent has engaged in a discriminatory act regarding public accommodations or specific actions of persons licensed or regulated by the Maryland Department of Labor. In addition to authorizing increased monetary relief under specific circumstances, the bill prohibits the Commission from seeking an order awarding monetary relief under other circumstances and sets forth factors for administrative law judges to consider when determining the amount of monetary relief. The amendments also establish that any monetary relief collected are to be paid to the complainant instead of the general fund and creates a reporting requirement for the Commission. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I special order the bill so I can review it and for possible amendment?
Floor leader, Chair, Vice Chair.
I will accept a special order till tomorrow, and please have the amendment to me and my chair in advance, please.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Question before the House, the special order, House Bill 368, until the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The bill has been special ordered. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 378, State Board of Dietetic Practice, Dietitian, Nutritionist, Licensure Requirements. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 is technical. Really can't see anything, sorry. Amendment number 2 corrects the spelling of dietitian, specifies that an eligible applicant have at minimum a bachelor's degree, and specifies that applicants receive a degree from a college or university accredited as required by the Commission on Dietetic Registration. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 381, State Board of Examiners in Optometry, Criminal History Records Checks. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1, it's sponsored and makes technical changes. Amendment number 2 requires the board to consider specified factors when reviewing the criminal history record information. Amendment number 3 clarifies that renewal requirement of the bill only apply to the first renewal application submitted after January 1st, 2026 by an applicant who was initially licensed before the effective date of this legislation. Move all 3 amendments, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 387, Public Information Act, Surveillance Images, Illegal Dumping in Baltimore City. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 requires a custodian to allow inspection of a surveillance image or images of illegal dumping in Baltimore City by employees or agents of the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development, and authorizes the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development to publicly disseminate a surveillance image as part of an investigation. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 418, Grant Applications and Reporting, Maryland Efficient Grant Application Council, alterations. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment 2 removes language that would have added the legislative auditor or their designee to the council, removes references to the governor's grants office and replaces that with DBM, establishes that the Secretary of Budget and Management or the Secretary's designee will serve as chair of the council, and extends the termination date to 2029. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 425, Advanced Practice Registered Nurse Compact. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognized.
Madam Speaker. Question for the floor leader, please.
I have to recognize you first, please.
Sorry, Madam
Recognize
Speaker.
the gentleman from the
Sorry, Madam
from
Speaker.
Eastern Shore. Yeah. Baltimore County. You're Baltimore County.
Yes, ma'am. Question for the floor leader, please.
Certainly.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine.
Just a couple quick questions. Just looking through the committee testimony, is NPAM still opposed to this legislation?
Yes, but the vast majority of nursing groups and entities in the state support the bill.
Okay. Were we able to resolve the postgraduate hour requirement issue that NPAM raised?
It's 1 year's worth.
Okay. It's my understanding that in other states that have those requirements, that they have had significant difficulty recruiting and retaining nurse practitioners. So I'm concerned about that inside of this bill. I did have one other question. NPAM also raised some concerns about scope of practice. Would this limit in any way prescriptive authority here in this state for nurse practitioners that are already practicing here?
No, if you are practicing in Maryland, whether your original license is as a Maryland practitioner or you're one who takes advantage of this compact from another state, the laws of this state apply to the practice of nursing by any individual in this state.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 461, Health State Advisory Council on Quality Care at the End of Life, renaming, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 728, Health Insurance Qualified Resident Enrollment Program, Access to Care Act, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment adds sponsors, clarifies that the program only allows qualified residents to purchase qualified plans on the individual exchange, clarifies that the state can only seek federal pass-through funds if available, and clarifies that any future funding for subsidies that will require additional authorization by the General Assembly. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Really quick, I know it's been a long day. Can the floor leader just rise for a brief question about the bill?
I'm here, sir.
Hi, how are you? So in just a quick cursory review of the bill, there was something in there noted about inmates. So there was a part about doesn't apply to inmates. However, it would apply to an individual that was incarcerated pending the disposition of charges. Is that correct?
Yes.
So for example, if somebody was charged with murder, but because of our court systems, they're in jail for 2 years, that person would be a qualified individual under this bill?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Speaker, permission to a special order the bill until tomorrow for the purpose of an amendment. I can have that for the committee.
Yes. Please give us the amendment in advance.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Question for the House, the special order House Bill 728 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Bill has been special ordered. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 2. Clerk will read first bill.
House Bill 63, Property Tax Credit for Dwelling House of Disabled Veterans, alterations, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 453, Income Tax Technical Corrections, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 558, Primary and Secondary Education Comprehensive Health Education Framework, established, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 adds safe and appropriate social media and internet use to the list of topics that must be covered by the Comprehensive Health Education Framework and removes the ability of parents to opt out their students out of the gender identity and sexual orientation topics of the framework. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there, I see you there. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentle lady from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise for a question?
Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Did I hear you say that the third amendment is taking away parents opting out?
It's taking the parent's ability to opt out of the gender identity and sexual orientation portions. Parents can still opt out of family life and human sexuality.
And what ages will this start? Is this pre-K, kindergarten?
The curriculum begins at kindergarten. It's age-appropriate curriculum, so it would be up to the jurisdiction to determine what's age-appropriate for each grade level.
Okay. Would you consider a special order for this bill for purpose of an amendment tomorrow?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's fine.
Question for the House is Special Order House Bill 558 until the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The bill will be special ordered for tomorrow. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 662, large family child care homes and child care centers, child care teachers, minimum age, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 825, libraries, regional resource centers, governing board membership, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 3. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 16, tax sales, homeowner protection funding program, funding, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 40, election law, post-election tabulation audits, risk limiting audits, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 60, rehabilitation services, disability, definition, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 174, property tax assessment, appeals to Maryland Tax Court, filing fee, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment imposes the fee after the appeal is decided on taxpayers who are unsuccessful in their appeal. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now to adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 287, tax credits, homeowners and renters, income calculation, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment is technical. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 331, election law, candidate expenditures, campaign-related child care expenses, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam
Vice Chair.
Speaker. So much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment expands the bill to cover caregiving services for an adult with a disability. I move the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 416, Public Schools, Active Shooter Safety Drills or Trainings Requirements, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 434, Persons Providing Lobbyist Compensation Statement of Political Contributions, Exemptions for Nonprofits, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 436, Election Law, Voter Registration, Age and Notification to Minors, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognize the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader please rise?
Floor leader.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, my friend. Could you just explain to the body what this bill does?
Sure. The current pre-registration age for voting is 16 years. It lowers the voting pre-registration age to 15 years and 9 months.
So if I understand state law as it works now, you can register at the age of 16. You can't vote until you're 18, with an exception that you can actually vote in a primary as long as you're going to be 18 by the time the general election comes, right?
That is correct.
So my local Board of Election reached out and they just said that they would incur some additional costs by implementing this, and other local boards of elections will incur costs. So I'm just curious as the necessity and the importance of the bill.
Yeah, the notification piece we find to make sure that young voters especially stay engaged as they become registered to vote. And this, the provision in the bill that incurs that cost is simply, that's tiny cost to be clear, is to make sure that they are notified about when they can start voting, because in some municipalities around the state of Maryland, in the individual municipal elections, young voters can start voting at the age of 16. Some municipalities allow voters to start voting at the age of 17. And then, of course, a vast majority of the state doesn't allow voting until the voter turns 18. So this helps to keep it clear to the voter if they pre-register, once they pre-register to vote, when they can start voting.
Thank you. That explains it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Are there any other amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered, printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 472, Education School Mapping Data Program, established. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 moves school mapping data program from MSDE to the Interagency Commission on School Construction. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
I have an amendment at the desk. 733427/1. No? 472?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have it.
Sorry.
You need to special order the bill to appropriate
Thank you.
time
I'd like
tomorrow.
to special order the bill for the amendment. Thank you.
HB 472 will be special order to the. Okay, I'm rushing it. The question before the House is to special order House Bill 472 to the appropriate time tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The bill will be special order for the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 522, Public Schools Student Telehealth Appointments Policy and Access. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
So much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies that the bill should not be construed to alter the responsibilities of a healthcare provider regarding the disclosure of medical records, including the authority to disclose in case of an emergency. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Report has been adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the minority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It is Amendment 403223.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
What this amendment does simply is it just adds parental permission or guardian permission to the bill. I tell you what, as a parent, 2 kids, my wife and I have dealt with this like many parents. Doctor's appointments, getting them to the care. I think as we move into a modern society, there are telehealth appointments, right? So I agree with the intent of the bill. One thing I did notice that was missing, and hopefully some of you can relate, when you go to a doctor's appointment, you have to fill out a form of who's paying for these services. You know, so if you're filling it out for yourself as an adult, you're obviously consenting and authorizing yourself to get these services. If you're doing it for a minor, then you have to consent for the minor if you're the guardian or the parent. And so what my bill does, it ensures that a 10-year-old in middle school or an 11-year-old in middle school obviously can't be conducting their own medical appointments in school without the parents knowing about it. So for those reasons, I move the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would urge the body to resist this amendment. The original point, and I want to thank the maker of the amendment for providing it for me ahead of time. Thank you very much. I would urge the body to resist this. The point of the bill is to help students get the care they need while minimizing disruption to their instruction. And so this amendment might require students to get approval where current law does not require it. And therefore, it might create greater disruption to their instruction. And for those reasons, I think we have been assiduous about staying away from health law in this particular law, and we'd like to continue to. So for those reasons, we're not meddling in health law here. Students would have the exact same rights that they had before to access health care, either remotely or in person.
Maker of the amendment.
Sure. So I think we can all agree that you know, both the Maryland Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court have held fundamental rights obviously applies to medical decisions. There are some narrow exceptions, carve-outs for certain situations. This bill doesn't carve out anything. This is just a blanket for any sort of treatment or any sort of services rendered by, again, middle and high school. So you have individuals as young as 10 years old. I brought up a point strictly about paying the bill. You know, have a 10-year-old walk into a doctor's office and then seek services and just see what happens. You know, so I think it's a technical. I wish I could have just presented it as a technical amendment, but I think it's prudent. It's a good decision. If you want to add some carve-outs in there that are current existing law in Maryland related to certain things in which a minor can seek medical treatment without their parents' consent, so be it. But this doesn't cover any of that. And so what my bill does just keeps the parents in the loop. I think that's the right thing, and I'll leave you with this. I would take a bullet for my kids, a bullet. And so I'm always trying to do what's best for them. The least they could do is keep me in the loop of what's going on with their health stuff. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Move the...
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Calvert, technically, but thank you. That's all right. It's all the same. No, it's not. It's not the same. I have a question for the floor leader, please.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So would this also apply to students if they get hurt in school? They would have a telehealth appointment?
The answer to all these questions is going to be the same. Whatever normal medical coverage they could get would apply here. We're not adding any additional medical coverage. We're not adding any additional rights for students to get medical coverage that they didn't have before under Maryland law.
So we have this issue of school violence now in Maryland that's systemic. And I just want to hear you on the floor say that when that happens, I mean, we have a 15-year-old who basically was convicted of rape that has been put into Patterson High School. Why that's happening, I have no idea. a student gets hurt and then goes for a telehealth appointment, are you actually saying the parent doesn't have a right to know?
Does the parent have a right to know now?
I'm asking you, sir. It's your bill.
But I'm asking you the same. I'm answering the question with the question. Does the parent currently have a right to know if a student is injured, if they get treatment at school?
So here's the question.
I'm asking you a question.
Should a parent know, sir? This is a simple question of whose child it belongs to. Should a parent know? Yes or no?
I'm answering the question. Let's check the law and find out if the law feels
I sure
the
hope
parent
the
should
media
know.
reports this. It's about time that the media and the people of this state realize that there are actually people in this legislature that believe that parents don't have the right to know when their children get hurt. Thank you, sir, for answering those questions.
You cannot speak on other people's motives. On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? No. Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
To explain my vote,
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a simple amendment about parent notification. Voting no on this amendment says that you don't think parents have the right to know when their children are having a telehealth visit. I'm just shocked. I am shocked that this body does not get behind parents.
Any further debate? Not, the clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none. Bill will be printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 620, Education, Sexual Abuse and Assault Awareness and Prevention Program, Human and Sex Trafficking. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There be 138 members present. The House is still in session. Calendar or third reading House Bills number 9. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 39, Residential Services Agencies, Reimbursement, Personal Assistance Services, Home Care Workers' Rights Act of 2024.
House Bill 39 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 39, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 53, Task Force to Study E-Commerce Monopolies in the State, E-Commerce Anti-Monopoly Study of 2024.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 105 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 53, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 244, Maryland Occupational Safety and Health Act, Civil Penalties, Alterations.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority leader.
Briefly, I know we're reaching the end of a long morning and everybody has things to do, but I am struck by this bill's provisions and by the fiscal note that says it will have no or a minimal impact on small businesses when we are more than doubling the potential upper level penalty on small businesses. Any of you who have ever dealt with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration or the Maryland version thereof, whether in your own lives, through knowing someone in your communities, through your professional lives, would know that it's it's a very important agency. It is also the height of bureaucratic involvement. Go take a look at the OSHA requirements for construction, for example, and you will find minutia beyond belief, and with the exact how many inches a ladder must be in height, how many amps a drill must be in order to be used without certain protections, et cetera, et cetera. Small businesses are now being subjected under this bill, and I appreciate my colleague, the committee chair, saying, you know, the perception is we have to do this because the feds did it. But your small businesses, their potentiality is going up from a $70,000 maximum fine, which puts a lot of small businesses out of business, to almost $160,000 at the upper end of the bill, at the upper end of the limit. And for any of you who have small construction contractors, small tradesmen, we keep telling people we need more trades. We need more people to go into the trades. I can tell you one of the main reasons in my experience why people don't go into it is if you try to go out in a small business, if you try to go to the folks who are building the DLS building across the corner, they've got all the compliance down, buddy. They've got attorneys, they've got advisors, they've got environmental construction experts, they've got everybody because they're charging the state, hundreds of millions of dollars to do this. It's built into the cost. The person who comes to your house or the person who comes to another small business in your community is undertaking a small project, they don't have all these things. They're trying the best that they can, and sometimes Most shows up and says, oh, you know what? You let your employee use your own ladder. I'm not joking. I literally was involved in a case of this nature. You let your employee use his own ladder off his own truck because you only have 3 or 4 employees, and that ladder was not the appropriate height or the appropriate safety things. And we told you a month or 2 ago, don't do that when we walked through, but the foreman wasn't here this day, so the gentleman, your worker, just grabbed the same ladder, used it again. That's the day the Mosh guy comes. Boom. Willful and repeated violation. And that puts small businesses out of business many times. For that reason, I'll be voting against the bill, and I think that it's a step too far. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Listening to my bellicose colleagues' example of the latter, again, we're talking about willful and repeat violations. The reason that they said that the impact was so minimal is because we generally in the state have good actors as businessmen. So people may not know the damage, the mistakes they made, but they're given a chance to repair them, which is why, again, while this did increase the maximum, it didn't increase the minimum for regular violations, giving them time to resolve them. And the reason, again, that most of these, they thought the impact was so minimal is because people don't want to hurt anybody. Now, for the most willful and egregious violations, oh yes, we have raised the penalties and we have set that max a little higher. Number one, as I said yesterday, 50% of MOSH's finances comes from OSHA. If we don't get in line, we will lose 50% of that, and I believe that that's a very important organization. And while I do agree with his Didalian explanation as to how much of sticklers they are, it's important on a work site and on a construction site to be a stickler. It's important to make sure, I know, God forbid, that the ladders that should be used are the ones that are used. But again, to make it very clear, this is not some brutal approach. This is just catching us up with the federal regulations, which allows us to continue our funding, and it also keeps our citizens safe. And as I said, we have good actors in the state, which is why this isn't going to have the impact. The sky is not going to fall, but it does put more of a sword of Damocles over the heads of our few bad actors. So for all those reasons, I do ask that you please support this bill.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 244, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. That ends the work at the desk. Committee announcements, appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The appropriations will have bill hearings beginning at 12:20. Thank you.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. The House Judiciary Committee will have hearings today starting at 1 o'clock.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment and Transportation Committee will have bill hearings at 1 o'clock in the committee room.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will have bill hearings at 1 p.m.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will again enjoy another exciting day of bill hearings at 1 p.m. in the committee room.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health and Government Operations Committee will have bill hearings at 1 p.m. Thank you.
Are there any subcommittee announcements? Yes, I don't know which subcommittee. Go ahead. I don't. What is it?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Natural Resources.
Natural Resources. We have a long bill hearing day today, so please listen out for when we will meet. It will probably be later in the evening around 5. Thank you.
What are you? Banking.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Banking, Consumer Protection, and Commercial Law, the subcommittee meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 9 has been canceled.
Local Revenues.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Local Revenues will be meeting immediately after floor session today.
Land Use and Ethics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Land Use and Ethics Subcommittee will be pushing our meeting back to 12:30 from 1, and we'll meet virtually at 12:30. Thank you.
Vice Chair of Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Insurance and Pharmaceutical Subcommittee will be meeting at noon today on Zoom. Thank you.
Revenues.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Revenues Subcommittee will be meeting virtually at 12:15. Thank you.
Public Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Public Health and Minority Health Disparities Subcommittee will be meeting at noon on Zoom today.
Any other subcommittees? Hearing none. Any delegation announcements? Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Prince George's County Law Enforcement Subcommittee will meet tomorrow via Zoom at 9 a.m.
Any other delegation announcements? Seeing none. Any caucus announcements? Latino caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Maryland Legislative Latino Caucus will have our annual breakfast tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock with the governor, a tradition that goes way, way back to last year. Thank you.
Okay. Any other caucus announcement? Legislative Black Caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, we would like to thank you, Madam Speaker, and the Senate President for inviting Morgan State University to the State House tomorrow. We'd like to invite all members of the legislature at 9:30 a.m. Our wonderful choir, Morgan State University, that we're very proud of, will be here again in honor of Black History Month to do some musical selections. So that will start at 9:30 a.m. in the Rotunda. Thank you.
Any other caucus announcements? Women's Caucus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Women's Caucus will have its virtual meeting tomorrow at 8:30, virtually tomorrow, the Women's Caucus. Thank you.
Any other caucuses or anything? Any personal or guest announcements? Yes, General from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, it is certainly a pleasure to welcome my fellow team members from the Horizon Foundation to the State House today. They are in the forward gallery. The Horizon Foundation works side by side with community to build power, advocate for change, and dismantle structural racism to achieve better health and everyone in Howard County and Greater Maryland. Again, colleagues, please give a warm welcome to my friends as they will be joining us in Annapolis for the day. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any other personal or guest announcements?
Madam Speaker.
Yes, gentlemen, Baltimore County.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today is Aviation Day, and over at the Calvert House at 5:30 tonight, you're all invited to a reception for Aviation Day. Come on over to Calvert House.
I don't know which hat you're wearing, but I'm just going to say the gentlelady from Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, friends, today is a special day. And I think some of you know that today we celebrate someone who has been a member of this body for a very long time. I think 13 years. Someone who, if you've been here as long as they have, you know that they have gone through a complete reputation renovation. Someone who used to rage against the machine, but now they are part of the machine. Someone who lost his BFF first due to an election and then to the Senate, but now found a new bestie or a lackey in his number 2. Someone who cares about their appearance. They stay in the gym lifting weights. I mean, they may be on supplements. We don't know. They care very much about their appearance, walking around in their fancy custom suits donned with SpongeBob and Spider-Man and Mickey Mouse. A warrior, someone who served our country as a combat soldier, and someone who continues to fight for the voiceless here in Maryland. Someone who does actually have a soft spot. Their children are the apple of their eye. A person I have actually known since I was in my 20s and who has been one of my closest friends for the past decade. Why we're friends, I don't know. So please rise to help me. Permission to use, I know what I'm doing, thank you. Permission to use the delegate's name, Madam Speaker.
Permission granted.
And if you don't rise, your bills might die. But then again, who are we kidding? They're already dead. So please help me wish Baltimore Sun's Marylander of the Year, the almighty powerful Oz reigning terror over economic matters. Happy birthday to Delegate Chair C.T. Wilson.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have some important guests joining us in the gallery today. I'll ask him to stand. We have a guest from the Maryland Food Bank. The Maryland Food Bank is the largest food assistance organization in Maryland. They serve Marylanders all across the state, from Garrett County through the Maryland's Eastern Shore, all over the state of Maryland. 1 in 3 Marylanders are at risk for food insecurity. That means that likely everyone in this room knows someone who's at risk from food insecurity. The Maryland Food Bank has distributed nearly 50 million pounds of food. We have our CEO from the Maryland Food Bank joining us here today. Colleagues, he will be walking around to your offices. Please know that the Maryland Food Bank has a deep respect and longstanding relationship with this body. Past board members include our very own Madam Speaker. I'm honored to serve currently as a board member for the Maryland Food Bank, and the CEO of this fantastic organization, Carmen Del Guicio, is joining us today in the gallery. Please welcome him. Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have another guest that's joining us as well. We have Eleanor Kennelly. She is from the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Along with her is Deasia Wiggins. Ms. Wiggins is joining us from Texas. She came here to participate in our proceedings. She is a tireless advocate for keeping young people safe from the dangers of sex trafficking and online dangers. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Wiggins and Ms. Kennelly.
other personal or guest announcements?
Madam Speaker,
Okay, how many more you have?
this is the last, I promise. I
Okay,
just
go
wanted to recognize that today is a very important day. Your current situation is that you are having the opportunity to celebrate someone great. This person is a great friend to all people that have the honor and privilege of calling him a friend. He has proudly served his country. He has proudly served his community in various roles as a sports coach, as a youth mentor, as someone who served on his HOA, and you know how hard that is. He has done a lot of great things, but most importantly, I'm proud to call him my friend. Permission to use the delegate's name?
Permission granted.
Please give a hearty happy birthday to my friend, Delegate Mike Rogers.
That's it? Okay.
Madam Speaker.
Yes. Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permission to use current and former delegates' names.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, please join Delegate Wyville and myself in welcoming students from the Wellspring Christian Family School Academy. The Academy has been recognized as a Maryland private school since 1983 and is currently in its 40th year of operation. The Academy's primary campus is located in Sibyllsville, which is situated in the northwest portion of Frederick County within Legislative District 2A. However, their affiliate programs include students from around the globe. They are joining us today as part of the Academy's annual Legislative Day when they travel to Annapolis to tour our historic courthouse, our historic State House, visit members of the Maryland General Assembly, and witness the legislative process firsthand. The students, which are seated in the front gallery, are joined today by their superintendent, Gary Cox, and being hosted by one of their alumni and former District 4 Delegate Dan Cox. Students, we welcome you and thank you for joining us today.
Any other personal or guest announcements? Okay. John Lady from Prince George's.
Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to invite colleagues to a reception hosted by the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland. Thank you, Madam. To the Parlay Room this evening from 5 to 7 p.m. Joining the caucus members will be the Alliance of Black Women Attorneys, the J. Franklin Bourne Bar Association, and to my Baltimore folks, the Monumental Bar Association. The Black lawyers are excited to talk to all of you all today, this evening, and so we hope to see you there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker. 5 to 7 p.m. in the Parlay Room. Thank you.
Any other personal or guest announcements? With that, quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? So the clerk will take the call. There being 137 members present, the House is still in session. Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stands adjourned until Wednesday, February 21st at 10 a.m.